Alrighty. Well, it is now 11 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started then. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the call today, and thanks for being part of Civic Action Week. Welcome to session today, titled Basic Needs in Our Community. My name is Des Stewart, and I serve as the Basic Needs Coordinator for the Office of Pitt Serves in the Division of Student Affairs. I'll be your host today, and so today we're going to hear from some wonderful people that will be speaking about some of the work that they do in and around basic needs, both in the community and from a student perspective from on campus. So I'd like to introduce these people to you. First, from the HCF, or Homeless Children's Education Fund, we have Brian Knight. Brian serves as the fund's manager of community engagement. Thanks for being here today with us, Brian.
Yeah, thank you.
Next, also from the HCF, we have Chris McEnany. In his role, Chris serves as the fund's team program manager. Thanks for being here today with us, Chris.
My pleasure. It's great to be here.
Yeah, no problem. And lastly, we have Priya Shah. She serves as the president of the student organization Pitt Peaches, or better said, Panthers Educating and Advocating for Children in Homeless Situations. Thanks for being here today with us, Priya. Really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
So my hope for everyone on the call today is that we're able to listen, learn, and reflect back on what Civic Action Week is and how we can become better civically engaged citizens, whether it's through some of the opportunities that these folks are going to provide for us, or other means as well. 2020 has been rough, it's been tough, and it's taken a lot from all of us, but it's going to take all of us together, working together to build it back better, to build it back better for all of us. So with that, Brian and Chris, you guys, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Liz. Appreciate it. And thanks everybody for being here. Unfortunately, we don't have like an official PowerPoint or anything, so you're gonna have to deal with our faces for a little while. So I hope that's okay. And it looks like, we've got a pretty decent sized group, but it's not like unmanageable. So if you guys have, questions that come up as you're listening to us talk for a bit, feel free to throw them in the chat or like unmute yourself. We'll throw in some pauses so that to try to, encourage this to be more of a dialogue and less of us talking at you, which sometimes it can turn into, just because we have a lot of stuff to talk about. But I guess, Chris, you might, I'll go over a little bit about HCF in general, and then I'll let you talk a bit about like what we've been doing in the pandemic and like what needs we're seeing with students that we're working with directly. Does that work for you? Cool.
Yeah.
So our organization is called the Homeless Children's Education Fund, like Des said, and we are an education organization that focuses on providing education supports to students experiencing homelessness in Allegheny County. We focus on school-age students, so that's kindergarten to 12th grade mostly, although there is some, a little bit of early childhood and a little bit of collegiate needs as well.
Brian, can I step in real quick
there?
Yeah,
of course, for sure.
We are seeing increased needs well, first off, the program's only been about 4 years old, our teen outreach program. So a lot of those students are now graduating that we first met 3 years ago. So as time goes by, we're going to have increasing support and services for college and or career students post-high school graduation.
Yeah. No, good. And so usually I try to give like a little bit of background of what we mean when we talk about homelessness, because it's a bit, our definition is a bit broader than I think most people think of. I think most people think of homelessness as sleeping outside. But there's a piece of federal education legislation called the McKinney-Vento Act that states that homelessness is defined as lacking a regular, fixed, and adequate nighttime residence, which in addition to people sleeping outside, also includes citizens who are doubled up due to economic hardship. So like living with other people, basically in a residence, in a situation that's temporary, where they're not on a lease or have a legal right to stay there. They've lost housing, and they end up staying with a friend or a family member temporarily. It also includes people who are staying temporarily at hotels or motels for the same reasons. An economic hardship. It includes people staying in cars or places not meant for human habitation, like or that are not adequate, which includes places that don't have like adequate utilities, like the water's shut off, or there's like an infestation that the landlord isn't taking care of. All those situations count. And we also see a lot of teenagers who are, couch surfing from place to place, staying with a boyfriend or girlfriend. And all of those situations affect education outcomes. So there are particular rights and protections afforded to those students, including the right to remain enrolled in their original school. So when you lose your housing and you move in with a friend or a family member or something temporarily, a lot of times that ends up putting you in a different feeder district. So you have the right to stay in and receive transportation to your original district to avoid gaps in your education. Chris, it looked like you had something to jump in with for a second.
No, it was just with regard to the McKinney-Vento. There are a whole lot more families that have housing, that are on a lease, but they also got black mold. And yeah, I mean, just think of the instances that you've had with some of your landlords, right?
Yeah, the Oakland landlord.
Your apartments. I remember, dealing with a landlord in college as well, and they just wouldn't fix it. So, and I had the means to, pay for that electrician bill if necessary. And it's still, you're still getting the runaround. A lot of our families are in those situations where they're even reluctant to bring attention to the inadequate living conditions, because there's no other option. If I'll deal with the black mold or the lack of heat, I'll heat using the oven in the range, because I don't have anywhere else to go. And reports to the county, and then there's also the worry that, oh, well, I have my kids in this inadequate place. Is CYF or is the government going to take my kids away from me because I don't have a proper place for them to stay? So these are all factors in why they may not want to disclose that they are in adequate housing, and silently fall under the radar of those situations until it reaches an absolute emergency and they have to leave.
Yeah,
that's all.
So
it happens a whole lot more than we recognize, though. At least I recognized initially.
Yeah. In Allegheny County, so it's a fairly widespread problem in Allegheny County and Pittsburgh and across the country. I think at last count nationally, there were about 1.5 million students who had experienced homelessness at some point, according to the McKinney-Vento definition, at some point in the past school year. In Allegheny County, that number was in 2017, 2018 was about 4,100, which is a pretty significant chunk of the school age population. And in Pittsburgh Public, that number last year was, so for the 19 and 20 school year, was 1,700 students in just Pittsburgh Public School District. So that's about 7% of their total student body, which is huge. And every year over year, it's been increasing. That number has been increasing steadily because housing prices keep increasing while wages do not continue increasing. So that's just to give like a bit of background on the issue and the population that HCEF is working with. Does anyone have any questions so far about any of that?
If I could just add on a couple points here, Brian. Basically, in a perfect world, with a functioning government and educational system, our school districts would be serving and supporting our students in the ways that our organization currently delivers services. Under the McKinney-Vento legislation, each school district is required to have a homeless liaison within each school building, but this is not a funded position. So it's, someone drawing the short straw, or there's a very caring and empathetic guidance counselor, teacher within that building that volunteers for this position. But this work is on top of their actual job. Consequently, makes it very hard for them to do it really, really well because they're managing multiple tasks all at the same time. And with the sheer numbers of those students who are often needing, one-on-one support and help, and our guidance offices and our social workers in our school districts and our buildings, they're short-staffed too. And homelessness is traumatic. So yes, our guidance counselors are being tasked with, making sure that, and those homeless liaisons within the building are making sure that their educational needs are being met. Yet we also need to address mental health and physical health needs, immediate housing needs, food insecurity, and everything else from, who's taking care of my dog? Who's going to take care of my cat right now? Who is looking after, some of my younger brothers and sisters? Not all shelters are accommodating for the whole family. If you got a male over 18 and it's a domestic violence situation, that 18-year-old who's a senior in high school may not be able to go to the domestic violence shelter with his younger brothers and sisters and mom, because he is an adult male at this point. So there's a lot of each case is unique, while all cases are traumatic and very stressful. So a lot of what we are doing is filling in the gaps within our school partner or with our school partners to help connect our students to supports so that they are empowered and that they are working confidently, independently on their own goals. And we try to remove barriers to any of those goals. So, yeah, to just summarize, we are there working as school partners to help support our guidance, social worker staff, so that we can work directly with those families experiencing homelessness within our school partners. And just for information, we are at Westinghouse, Brashear, and University Prep within Pittsburgh Public Schools. We are working with Woodland Hills High School, Steel Valley High School, Stowe Rocks High School, Shaler High School, and hopefully McKeesport at some point too. Every single district, all 42 districts within Allegheny County are reporting families experiencing housing instability and homelessness, whether that's in, Upper St. Clair or Mount Lebanon or, some of our less economically secure districts as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great summary of like what our general role is. I think we're there to fill in gaps and provide supports wherever we can. We have a lot of programs that we do that through. Chris's teen program is directly in the high schools, working directly with students and school staff. We have after-school programming in some of the shelters throughout the city for younger students, like K-5, K-7. And we also have scholarship programming, emergency funding to keep kids connected to extracurriculars, as well as backpacks and school supplies, all sorts of enrichment programming and mini grants that we provide to shelters to allow them to provide additional educational opportunities for students that's flexible and works for them. So that's just some background on us and some of the work that we're doing and the needs that we try to fill within the community. Obviously, COVID has changed this a lot, so we're doing a lot more remote work with students, and we're doing a lot more work around keeping students connected to the internet and their remote classes, because housing instability is also connectivity instability. It's when you lose your housing, you lose a lot of possessions a lot of the time. It's harder to keep your laptop, your tablet, your phone. Numbers change. All of those things are difficult to maintain, and especially with it's been difficult for a lot of families to maintain connection to Comcast or other internet. So we've been working with them to make sure that they have everything that they need, whether it's hotspots, laptops, just help navigating the Comcast web, all that stuff.
Yeah, and other changes within COVID, what we're seeing too is, if you're doubling up, I visited a family the other day in Northview Heights. Another family was staying at this apartment in Northview Heights. So you had an apartment that was, the lease was supposed to be a family of 4, and there are 10 people staying in that apartment right now. 6 students, 6 different machines, 6 different grade levels, and they're all trying to work and be productive all at the same time. That is not an ideal learning environment at all. There aren't 6 rooms in the apartment. I don't know how, so we delivered headphones, right? So the computers aren't all, on at the same time, and we're all, listening to 5 different classes all at the same time. The internet is a lot slower in that house now, right? So connected mom with the Carnegie Library, who should start next week distributing some hotspots to families. I believe that they applied for those now, because one modem in the house sometimes just is not enough.
Yeah.
Also, all of our, some students are doing very well learning remotely, and some are not. But the idea that you can hit, your raise hand button in your Google Classroom, or you're in Zoom classroom, and your teacher's going to come over and show you how to, fix that word problem, that math problem, that's just not happening. So connecting to tutors and scheduling these Zoom appointments, outside of school with some of our students has been really helpful to them. And, nobody's dragging them out of bed, right now. Nobody is, yelling at them, hey, get out of the hallway, get into class, right? Some of the things that kept me in check in high school just do not exist for them right now. So they're having to figure out how to self-discipline themselves, showing up, being present, being organized, putting their phone away. No one's telling them, hey, get off your phone, right? No, they could be on their phone the entire time that they're in class, and nobody's checking them on that. Consequently, they're not retaining a whole lot of what they're supposed to be. We have to help them help themselves, and recognize that, well, this is the way that the world is right now, and you still need to exercise that brain of yours so you can achieve whatever goals that you have for yourself post-graduation.
Yeah. And so given like a fair bit of background, and conscious we got about 10 more minutes, I think. So we wanted to give you, plenty of ways that you can get engaged personally, because I think that's what the sort of the goal of this PIT Action Week thing is. And there's a lot of things that you can do. I think Chris just segued us in pretty well with like talking about tutoring and things like that. Something that HCEF individually as an organization can use some of right now, although we do have a fair few already, is some tutors for especially our teen program, our high school students. We're trying to connect students with individual tutors and mentors for specific subjects. And that would probably be about a 30-minute to 1 hour, 30-minute to 2-hour commitment per week, depending on how many sessions the student is available and ready for. But it would probably be about 1 session a week, I would say, is the usual once we get somebody connected. And you can email us about that. I'll put our emails in the chat afterwards. And then so we do need some, but typically I will say that we have had more tutors ready than we've had students ready for tutors. So we can't always connect everybody who reaches out. So what I ask of you guys is well, first, so these issues are complex. I think it's pretty clear from how long we've been able to spend just on what we were talking about, the limited corner that we're providing supports for this morning. And real substantial change is going to take a concerted effort over time. So from you guys as students, one thing that I always encourage is for you to self-organize. I mean, Peaches is a great example of a group of students who has taken some initiative and like started something that is ongoing and that is consistently trying to address these issues. And that's what it takes. It's not going to be something that we can fix in a day of volunteering or something. This is something that you need to be working at steadily. So and one of the first things that I would suggest, like as you're considering how to best get involved in these types of issues, is to start educating yourselves about them. So there are a lot of really great resources. We put out regular newsletters through our Homeless Education Network, which is very like local systems advocacy focused, has a lot of information about community resources and stuff like that, and just like stuff HCEF is doing. We also have like a regular newsletter that is more focused on just what our programs are up to recently. So I'd encourage you to sign up for those, as well as there's a federal organization called Schoolhouse Connection that focuses on advocacy for policies that will benefit students and youth experiencing homelessness, both nationally and at the state level. So I'd encourage you to sign up for their newsletter and I'll share my screen real quick.
I attached both links for state and federal policy from Schoolhouse Connection in the chat, Brian.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah,
maybe I'll just
you can find state there. There's often petitions. There's numbers to call your local, federal, state representatives to bring these pending bills to their attention. There needs to be, obviously, this isn't a funded issue to the degree that we're going to, really change the system. I mean, we don't have paid homeless liaisons. The bulk of the McKinney-Vento funding that schools receive to help bring additional support to unstably housed youth, typically in a given year, is swallowed up by transportation budgets, much more so than anything else. So in theory, there could be money for a paid tutor. There are dollars available for additional mental health supports or additional learning supports. But again, in most years, almost all the money that is earmarked for individual districts to address housing instability and homelessness among their population is transportation. Yep. Now, how does that look when we're not transporting students now? So that's one of the positives. In past years, it's been really difficult to match tutors with some of our teens because it was typically in an after-school setting face-to-face. Well, we don't need to worry about transporting anymore. Most of our students do have computers, they do have internet, and we can do these, tutoring sessions virtually.
Yeah.
And we can meet them individually at their time, and can be a lot more flexible.
Yeah.
So that's one positive.
And I will share my screen real quick, just to give you like a particular bill that is currently on the table that folks that we've been focusing on a bit, and that Schoolhouse Connection has been focusing on. I will share this link in the chat as well. So this is a federal bill called the Emergency Family Stabilization Act. I'm sure you guys are aware there's been lots and lots of federal COVID-19 relief. None of that relief has been targeted towards children and youth experiencing homelessness by the McKinney-Vento definition. So that leaves an enormous segment of the population that needs very specific targeted support that are being largely left out of these dollars that are getting sent down. So there's a bill called the Emergency Family Stabilization Act that would set aside a large amount of money at the federal level to distribute to organizations and schools that are working with students who lack a regular, fixed, adequate nighttime residence. And the goal is to specifically support their unique needs, not necessarily just through education, but also, their basic needs, housing, food insecurity, all that sort of stuff. It's very flexible funding, so there isn't like so they're letting local municipalities decide what are the needs of the communities that that you work with every day. So I'll send this link in once I stop talking, and it'll have an area where you can send a form letter to your congressman, to your representative, asking to co-sponsor the bill. Mike Doyle is the state House representative for, pretty much all of Pittsburgh, definitely Oakland. And so if you're registered to vote in Oakland, which I hope you are, and I encourage you to do that immediately if you're not, then give his office a call. Every call seriously counts. They listen to them, and if you're saying co-sponsored this specific bill, they're going to put a tick mark on that, and that's going to be, and those are going to add up, and eventually they'll say, wow, they really, there's a lot of people that want this support, and that's how stuff gets passed. And I'm conscious that we're coming up on time pretty soon. Two other things that I wanted to mention briefly. One, because there's still a need for devices, there's an organization in Pittsburgh called Computer Reach that you can donate laptops and devices to, and they do a great job of distributing to local nonprofits as well as the school systems, to make sure that, and recently they've really been focusing on making sure that students are having what they need for remote learning. So I will put their information in the chat also, and they work with donors very individually, so you can have a say in where your computer goes. And the last thing that I'm gonna...
This is a significant need, Brian. Many of almost every family now has a computer, but not every student has a computer. And you can and where we've gone from last year's virtual learning model was more of assignments given in the beginning of the week. Then you could sort of complete your assignments at your own pace. You weren't having to physically check into classes. Consequently, a lot of students did not participate at all. Yeah. So the pendulum has swung the completely opposite direction this fall semester, to where you have to, you got to be on time for every single class. And those start typically at 8, run through 2:30. That's almost an impossibility if you do not have your own device, or you don't have your own phone. So this has been a struggle for a lot of families that are doubling up, that just do not, that don't have in the schools right now. There's delays. Like, you try to buy a $250 Chromebook anywhere, good luck.
Yeah.
You might be able to buy $1,000 one, right? But who's shelling that out? Not our families. So there's a delay and a wait, and if you have an older machine that could be refurbished, and I mean, I've actually handed out old desktops, people, like the boxes,
Yeah. And
and those work. They were, they've been cleaned and scrubbed, and it's brand new, like it's 2012, and they still do the job that our families need, even though it might not be, uh, a laptop per se, but it's a functioning computer that works and can connect to the internet. Our families are in need. So
yeah.
if you have any old equipment, or if you want to raise a hardware drive, let Brian and I know, and we'll be happy to help you out.
For sure. Conscious of our time, I'm so sorry, Priya. Last thing that I'll say, if you're going to self-organize, which again, I encourage you guys to do, to figure out what you see as the needs in your community, please do so with an attitude of solidarity over charity. And what I mean by that is, don't consider yourselves separate from the people that you are attempting to work with. About 10%, I was just at a webinar yesterday where they said about 10% of four-year college students experience homelessness or housing instability at some point in an average year. So it's not, people different from you, and it's not people different from me. They're just your neighbors, so please remember that, we're all in this together, and that's what I got. All right, sorry for going over, Priya, but if anybody has questions or comments, I'm happy to talk with anyone individually after this. I'll put my email in the chat. Please reach out.
For sure. And if anyone does have questions, just put them in the chat, and we might have time to get to them at the end as well. But thanks, Chris and Brian. Thanks for all that information. I mean, you guys laid out a bunch of ways that people can get involved. Tutoring, the schoolhouse, the advocacy, computer reach. I think it's great, and I just appreciate both of you for being here. To express all of that to us. So next, we have Priya Shaw, president of Pit Peaches.
Hi, I'm Priya. So I'm the president of Pit Peaches, as Des said. We're a student organization that works to educate and advocate for children in homeless situations. I have a short PowerPoint I'm going to share. Some of the stuff is just going to be reiterated, similar to what Brian and Chris shared. Let's see. There. Okay. So what is homelessness? Like Chris and Brian said, there's usually a stereotypical definition, but it's much broader than we think. Homelessness isn't exclusive to these three categories, but there's many different types. Chronic, a lot of people are in homelessness for long periods of time. Transitional is very common. It could be them staying at the shelter when they have a catastrophe or something. And this is a lot of the younger population, and it could be episodic too. It could be due to circumstances, in and out, and that sort of thing. It's not a consistent identity. I think it's really important that homelessness isn't an identity. It can be an experience someone goes through, but it's not who they are. And then there's multiple causes. It could be they're escaping abuse, they have inadequate housing conditions, they may have been evicted by their parents if they're younger children. Many reasons that occur, LGBTQ children a lot of times undergo this, and there could be instances of parental substance misuse that makes it so that children aren't in stable housing and things like that. And 1 in every 45 children experiences homelessness in America each year. And with COVID-19 and the pandemic, these statistics haven't gotten better. More housing inadequacies are present than they were before. And I think this is from the 2018 report but 4,218 children in Allegheny County experienced homelessness in that year. And there's 43 school districts in Allegheny County, and all of them have homeless kids. So it's definitely America-wide issue, but it's also very specific to the county we live in. And there's a lot of different effects homelessness can have, and one of the main ones Peaches strives to focus on is in terms of education. Obviously, there are also psychosocial effects. There's effects in terms of physical health. We definitely want to advocate for those as well. But in terms of academic achievement, a lot of these children are more prone to dropping out. They're more prone to being maybe 1 or 2 levels under their like grade level that they should be. And a lot of times when these communities are under-resourced, they can't have the proper help they need in order to stay and fulfill their potential and essentially break that cycle. And yeah, so these are some of the top challenges that homeless children face. In addition to like inadequate housing, transportation, do they have busing, or a lot of their like families may not have cars? How do you get to school? Inability to do homework, or not just have a proper study area. Like Chris mentioned before with that house with 6 kids who are studying, it's almost impossible to focus in that type of environment. So can they actually like finish their homework? And then health and medical care, are they healthy enough to go to school? Can they make it? Supplies and clothing is also just as important. And then of course you have the basic needs. And then there's different ways we can help. There on a smaller scale basis, you can donate clothes, school supplies, games. In the past, Peaches has worked with local organizations during the holidays to like donate gifts. We've worked to donate like books, just anything that could help. The next two kind of go hand in hand. Tutor and volunteer at shelters, try to make a direct impact in the community. And then it's just as important to educate yourself as it is to educate others. Peaches really strives to do that through homelessness simulations we have on campus. We have different advocacy events. And also, it's really important to contact your representatives. That's one of the main forms of advocacy we can engage in to create real change. And so I talked about this a little earlier, but Peaches on campus, what we mainly do is different fundraising events. So a lot of our funds in the past have gone to HCF, and we're also planning to hold fundraisers this year to help with just basic supplies that they're providing. And then in terms of awareness, we have a homelessness simulation. So we just try to have PIT students come into the simulation, learn a little about the statistics of homelessness. We have different activities, which are basically the takeaway is when someone becomes homeless, it's hard to take all of their supplies with them. A lot of these transitions also unfortunately involve losing important items like family photos. Like we don't think about that. Those are just as important. And then a lot of the time these parents need to think, do I take my clothes? Do I take my kids' clothes? Because a lot of times they can only take what is on their person. And then another way is direct assistance. And like I said, that would be mostly through tutoring. So we've worked with HCF and we are going to continue to do so. And we're also this year looking at Project Destiny. It's a virtual tutoring opportunity for children in elementary schools. So just like about an hour a week, it's whatever you can. And you're just like mentoring them, helping them navigate the different facets of online learning. It's definitely a big transition, especially for these younger kids. It's very difficult to concentrate in this environment, and a lot of the technology the parents may not be as familiar with. So we try to do what we can in aiding that process. And then in terms of writing to legislators, I think I skipped over the slide, but a lot of the public policy initiatives are extremely important because there's different ways in which they can impact how policy is looked at. They can create a safety net for children and families to provide like real protection against like these harmful effects. They can enact job training programs, which are equally as important to break the cycle. And then resources for public education, especially for those under-resourced school areas. just to like do what they can in order to help. And then there's a lot about homeless runaway and emancipation laws. So if there's ways for like teenagers to properly deal with like domestic violence or proper protection provided for them if they are in a situation where their parents like kick them out, then we can put them in a place where they're better like situated to handle whatever predicament they're in. And then just like in general, I think legislation is one of the most important parts Peaches participates in. And we do that through writing to legislators, as I said. But in terms of the PowerPoint, that's all I have on this past slide. A lot of our meetings, we talk about different facets of homelessness. We talked about how veterans deal with homelessness, how children who are part of the LGBTQ plus community deal with homelessness, and how it affects everyone in a similar way, but also in different ways at the same time. So here I just put the Peaches mailing list if you're interested in joining. We'll talk about the events we're having. We'll talk about how to get involved in volunteering through the organizations we work with, and maybe just like also include information on legislation we plan on writing with. And we also have different meetings where we help you like write these actual letters or emails, just so you have like a template so you know where to start. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So does anyone have any questions in the chat right now? If not, I think I have a few questions though, just that I'd come up with. I think what are like the immediate needs that someone that wants to get involved right after this with you guys that you'd want them to get started on? I guess it's a question for Brian or Chris or Priya, to be honest.
I would say if you're interested in teen tutoring, definitely shoot me an email. Priya, if you have a couple of minutes after, or maybe like later today or later in the week, maybe we can talk about like what you guys have been doing recently, because we haven't connected in a little bit. But yeah, I would say email me to let me know, how you're interested in participating, whether that's volunteering through our teen program, or trying to organize to advocate for more effective systems to support students experiencing homelessness, and sign up for the newsletters via Schoolhouse Connection, so that you can get those updates, so that you start to have that understanding of what's going on, because these things, stuff's going to change very rapidly. It's policy and systems advocacy. The priorities are constantly shifting. There's always new stuff that's happening. So it takes some, effort and keeping up with stuff to really be able to get involved. Priya, did you have anything?
Oh yeah, I think it's just really important. Like, if you want to get involved, first of all, definitely get the conversation going. Tutoring is also a really great way to get involved. There's in-person opportunities, I assume, and like virtual, and just get your clearances for those. Like after that, you can actually like make a difference. You can't really do anything until you have those clearances, I think. So I think that could be a good first step.
Yeah. Ryan, we can cover clearances costs, right?
Yeah, so the Pennsylvania clearances are free. If you've lived in Pennsylvania for 10 years, then your federal one, you can just sign a waiver. If you haven't lived in Pennsylvania for 10 years, then the federal like fingerprint clearance is like $16, and we can reimburse you for it. If you're gonna be, if you end up volunteering with us directly. So great. And I actually have a question for people that are here. Like, what are your priorities? Why did you pick this particular session? And what would you like to get involved with specifically?
If anyone wants to answer, feel free to unmute yourself or type it in the chat.
Well, for me, I'm remote right now, so I'm in Maryland, and I've actually never been to Pittsburgh. But when I was in, oh, I'm a first year student also. When I was in high school, I was part of like a volunteer group, and we did a lot of stuff together, like food drives and jacket drives and stuff like that. So I just wanted to make sure that when I went to college, I would be involved in like a type of organization that does the same thing. So seeing this for Civic Action Week was definitely something that I wanted to do because I feel like a lot of times, especially like now, there's a lot of focus on like politics and stuff like that, but people aren't really focusing on other people as much. And like the things that you care about also affect people. So I think it's important, like how I think Mr. Knight and Mr. McEnany were saying before that when you're involved in like a community, it's you shouldn't see it like, oh, us and them. You should see it as like a collective group effort so that you're learning from them and they're also learning from you. So you're not like imposing things that you think are the best on them and they don't feel like you're, like invading in their space. So it's more of like, you're helping each other. So yeah.
Sure. I think that's a great point, Stephanie. I think that's really what we've all been talking about, is all of us coming together as community members because we're all in the same community and it takes all of us to make it better. Um, I know a great point that Brian, Priya, Chris all talked about is that, some of these basic needs, they're a condition, they're not identities. And that's something that people need to understand. It's not people don't want to be homeless, people don't want to be out of a job, people don't want to not have their basic needs. It's just the world we live in, and it takes all of us here on this call, all of us out there to use our voices to get other people involved to make it better. So we have someone, Laurel Roberts. She says, as a native Pittsburgher whose children attended public schools, I have seen the effect that family situation has on the ability of children to learn and succeed. I want to learn how to help. Absolutely, I think all of them have provided great ways to do that. So please reach out as well. Mr. Lee said, educate myself on these issues. And that's the other thing. One of the things that you guys have said is the first step is educating yourself on these issues. And I think you guys have done a great job here today doing that as well. Do we have any other comments, questions that people like to share, or anything like that about why they decided to join this session today?
Well, while people are figuring out if they want to or not, shout out to Erica. Thanks for joining. Erica's done a lot of great work on the Pitt and the other colleges in the area. Have been working on a project called the Collegiate Basic Needs Dialogue for the past couple of years that has been trying to address collegiate basic needs. So mostly housing and food instability for college students, because that's a real issue that a lot of students are facing, and it's probably going to be more widespread now that the pandemic is affecting so many people's income situations. So that's another avenue that people can help out. I would think is getting involved in the office of Pitt Serves. They have a wonderful community food food pantry for students at Pitt, as well as you guys have a closet too as well, right?
Yes, Thriftsburg.
Yeah,
It's our on-campus thrift store.
Yeah.
So we have that as well, along with the food pantry. So I remember Stephanie, you were saying about getting involved. We have our food pantry, as, among other things as well.
Yeah.
And thanks for noting that the basic needs collegiate dialogue, because students on the call, if you haven't already, please go take the Real College Assessment. It has been sent to your email a few times now. So directly what Brian was talking about, getting that the Real College Assessment, we're trying to figure out your lived experiences with basic needs. So the Real College Assessment is just trying to figure out students' lived experiences with food, hunger, housing, financial wellness, and those things. It's really, I guess, adamant. I don't know. it's really important that you guys take this assessment because it's going to go a long way in what Pitt does in the future in providing resources and connections, not only with the university, but with students as well. Because, I know you guys are students first. You guys are human. I mean, not so students first. Sorry, you guys are humans first. So, real college is going to get down to what you guys are experiencing on campus at Pitt. So please go take that as well. I don't think we. Sorry, Brian. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I just emphasize everything that you said. Like those local surveys are extremely important, and they inform national conversations about what are the real issues that are affecting students in the country as a whole. So you might see it and just say, oh, it's just some survey. This doesn't really apply to me, but it applies to everyone. You need robust responses to those things in order to tell accurate stories. And one thing that we see a lot in that type of housing and hunger survey is that a lot of students, especially college students, won't self-identify as experiencing housing instability. Like they won't say, that's happened to me. But then when you ask descriptive questions like, have you, stayed in your car for more than one night in the past 2 months, then you find that there are many more students who have actually experienced those situations, but aren't thinking of them in that way. So I think paying attention to the information that comes out of those surveys and participating in them is very, very important because you might be able to provide information that you don't know is very valuable. So I highly encourage people to participate in that.
For sure. Just one last note, the survey closes on October 30th. So if you haven't, please get it done by then. Like I said, it's very important, and I think it's gonna be an avenue to holding the university accountable for providing some of these resources and things as well. I don't think we have any more comments or questions. So, again, thank you, Priya, Chris, Brian, for being here today, talking about some of the needs, some of your organization a little bit, providing great info. Again, thanks to our Civic Action Week planning team, Shanae and Christy. Big shout out to you guys for helping us get this set up today. And thanks to Mike as well. But I think that's it. We can wrap it up, everybody. Everyone have a good day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.